Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So as promised, I'm going to do a race day debrief from Eaton Dorney Triathlon and Challenge Gdansk, which were my last two races. So starting with Eaton Dorney, it was a really exciting opportunity to get to race on home soil in a British pro field over a unique distance. So the swim was 1800 meters, the bike was 60k and the run was 15k. It was also a 1 PM start, which also turned out to be the hottest day of the year so far in the UK, so made for rather interesting race dynamics. Being so hot, it ended up being a non-wetsuit swim. So into the water, we were allowed a quick warm-up, and then we kind of like lined up with the fastest swimmers typically on the right hand side, and then everyone lining up to the left of them. I think this is kind of where my first mistake was, and kind of should have gone second row behind some of the fastest swimmers and maybe would have led to a slightly better swim, but I don't know. Anyway, the start gun went off, and typical first 100, 200 like full gas, try and stick on the feet and then settle into the group once it kind of calms down a bit. But after sort of like maybe 400 odd meters or so, it was kind of splitting up, and I was kind of like losing the main group and found myself towards the back with Brett Halliwell and Will Draper. Obviously I didn't know, well, I knew I was with Brett because we were pretty much swam side by side, but I wasn't too sure if there was anyone behind us or where we were until exiting the swim. Thankfully I had Hannah with me supporting, also getting some clips on the camera, so she was able to give some splits exiting the water, and we were kind of like 5 minutes down on the lead and like 3 minutes back from like the next sort of group, which yeah, was rather disappointing for me, because I know in training I've definitely shown potential of swimming a lot better than that, just haven't really proven it in a race yet, but hopefully that will come. Through transition, I wanted to get out onto the bike as quick as possible, and I kind of went hard for the first lap. Kind of Brett was with me exiting transition, but I was able to kind of get rid of him pretty quickly, which was nice. And then kind of a lap and a half in, then Will Draper eventually caught me. Like we've raced each other a few times over the years, and each time he's caught me on the bike and absolutely flew past me. But this time I was able to kind of like get in behind him and kind of like legally draft to that sort of 20 meter draft zone, which was the rules for this race. I was riding pretty well following Will. As I mentioned, it was really hot, so it was kind of like focusing on getting in the fluids and nutrition ready for the run. We were picking off people throughout the bike, but we also ended up eventually getting lapped by the leaders, Luke Pollard and Tom. It was something really like hard to know what to do then, because you don't really want to interfere with the front of the race, but they also weren't really getting away from us, so it kind of turned into like a 4-man group really, with Will and I being lapped athletes, kind of like sitting behind Luke and Tom. Then pretty uneventful rest of the ride, just kind of, yeah, all stuck together, riding pretty hard, but kind of knew I'd be able to run well for that. So then 12 laps into transition, shoes on, cap, and then out onto the run course then. It was a 3-lap of 5k course, and in the race information they said there was only going to be like one aid station or water station on the course, but then they did also mention that they would provide like a special needs aid station where we could put any of our own nutrition if we wanted, which given the temperatures was pretty handy. And speaking to Chris, my coach, beforehand, we decided to think of some like cooling strategies. So what I ended up doing was getting a few 200ml bottles of water, and I froze those overnight, which meant when I got to the run I was able to pick up these like frozen bottles which had a bit of fluid around them, which was nice and cool, and I was able to either drink that or pour that over my head and then stuff the rest of the ice kind of down my tri-suit. So yeah, out onto the run course, I was like settling into my rhythm initially, at a pace I felt I could kind of maintain in the heat for 15k. and was just kind of just focusing on myself then, trying to like pick up off people that were maybe like fading from the front groups. But unfortunately, like 2.5k in, I started to get a really nasty stitch in like my lower abdomen, and had to like really slow down to almost like a shuffle just to kind of like let that go before being able to push on again. And then it was just a case of kind of like, what do I do? When I kind of like felt good, I wanted to like push on again, but I was kind of well out of the race by that point, and obviously with Challenge Gdansk coming up the following week, that was kind of playing on my mind and thinking, just save myself for that. But then also on the flip side, with the way that the point system works, the PTO rankings, you need to kind of like be pushing all the way to the finish just to maximise points. So I ended up just getting around the course, not hugely satisfied with my race performance, but it wasn't going to be long before I had another opportunity to redeem myself out in Poland. Basically after Eton then, spoke to my coach Chris, and we kind of like debriefed on the race and what we could do differently going into future races. And one of the things we kind of thought about was like heat acclimation leading into hot races. Obviously we didn't have a huge amount of time for this, so what we settled on was to do a few hot baths. It's kind of like after my last session of the day for the 4 days leading into travelling out to Poland. Onto the race itself in Poland, there was like 30 to 40 guys on the start list, so a reasonably well-sized field. And it was quite a shallow entry into the sea, and it was a beach start, so kind of like in the days leading up I knew it was going to be kind of like run in, dive, a few dolphin dives before you kind of settle into your rhythm of actually swimming. So I was well prepared for that, and that's kind of how it ended up being. Like a few guys tried to see how far they could run, which is rather interesting. But yeah, it was fairly like together for a good few minutes before then it kind of like broke off into groups, and I kind of found myself in my third main group really, which we ended up coming out of the water in 27 minutes, which was like 2 minutes down on the second group, and then another minute or two on kind of like the front group, which I was reasonably pleased with. Obviously a lot better swim than the week before in Eton, but I think on a good day I should be able to kind of like get into that second group, which is roughly like 1:20 pace, being if the course is accurate. So I think like, yeah, definitely capable of that on a good day, so that's kind of what I'm striving for. And if that's possible, then it sets me up for a really good race then. But wasn't to be, and I was in the third group. So coming out of transition, I was towards the back of this group and made a decisive effort to get to the front to see if I could get away and try and close some time up to the front of the race. There was a little section where you can kind of like take splits on the other groups, which I was able to do, and then I kind of like referenced that for the rest of the ride. For the first kind of half of the bike course, I was kind of on this front of this third group, as I say, kind of like towing everyone around, and then I kind of made the decision to get off the front. Unfortunately though, my nutrition strategy going in to the race was to have 2 bottles, one full of energy and one with precision hydration in, and then I was going to pick up water from the aid stations just to kind of maintain hydration. But unfortunately each time through the aid station I dropped every bottle available, and given it was like 30 odd degrees, I wasn't going to get around on just 1 litre on the bike. So yeah, that kind of played into the decision to get off the front really and try and conserve some energy and not work too hard, just to maintain like cool and not get too dehydrated. But yeah, the last lap of the bike, my mouth was really getting dry and was really kind of starting to suffer with the dehydration. So then into transition, still amongst this third group, roughly 3 minutes down on the group in front. I kind of felt if I was able to have a good run, I could close some gaps to some of the people in that group and get a good result. But yeah, like as I previously mentioned, I was quite dehydrated, and it kind of was then trying to play catch up through all the aid stations, taking as many drinks as I could, plenty of sponges and ice to keep cool. I felt like I settled into a good rhythm, was running quite well, but kind of glancing down at the pace on my watch, it was definitely a lot slower than it felt, and was just kind of like trying to survive the run really till the finish, and ended up crossing the line in 16th place, which initially I was like pleased with, in that it was like a step on from the previous 2 races I've done this season, a kind of more rounded performance, and I know if I was able to kind of fuel and hydrate adequately on the bike, I could have run a lot better. But yeah, another good learning experience banked, and yeah, we go again this weekend at Outlaw Holcombe, which will be my 4th race this year and 3rd race in 4 weeks. So afterwards I'll kind of like look to have a bit of a break and get into a training block before targeting some future races. Yeah, thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it insightful, and I'll hope to try and get like a race day vlog from Outlaw Holcombe this weekend, so stay tuned for that.